Another day, another questionable visual novel to review. Last week we looked at Doki Doki Family, a soulless visual novel slash dating sim with no dating sim mechanics and barely any plot. Not only that, but it also has no adult content, unless you happen to find it outside of Steam, but we're not going to talk about that. Today, we're looking at another game from the same developers, Cyberstep, to see if they can be redeemed. My name is Graeldon, I'm reviewing Steam games in alphabetical order to find the hidden gems in the piles of garbage, and today's game is Mischief Dungeon Life. Let's begin. Just like with Doki Doki Family, we are immediately given the option to download English language files upon launching the game. Only this time, they don't work. Looking at the main menu, I noticed something strange. It's similar, but different to the menu used in Doki Doki Family. The menu options have shifted from the side to the bottom of the screen, and the logo has flipped to the other side. What I don't understand is why. Especially considering that the games launched on Steam on the exact same date. I would have expected them to have the same UI, but for whatever reason they decided to tweak it between the two games. I can only speculate that they were created and perhaps launched on a different platform separately, but launched on Steam at the same time. Having stared at the title screen for an uncomfortably long time, I quickly moved past the options menu, which is, for better or worse, the equally hideous twin of the one in Doki Doki Family, and find the languages section. Now, if you ever needed evidence that a game has been machine translated, this is how you know. Even most of the AAA games these days aren't translated into this many languages. Sadly, the language options don't work here either. I even put the text through Google Translate to make sure I was clicking the right buttons. The error message reads, "Server not found." So, wherever Cyberstep was hosting the language files has either been deleted or gone offline, which makes me think that it was a miracle that Doki Doki Family actually worked. Or maybe not a miracle because I had to play it. Now, while I am prepared to play some awful games for the sake of your entertainment, I'm not willing to play through a game that I cannot read, especially when reading is 99% of the gameplay. This means my final rating for Mischief Dungeon Life is a 404 error out of 10. Thanks for watching. Just kidding, we can't end it there. Because that one was a complete flop, let's move right along. My name is Graeldon, I'm reviewing Steam games in alphabetical order so that you can find enjoyment in my suffering, and the game we're actually playing today is Reflected. Say hello to Ricey. Ricey is trapped in a circle. Ricey can move and even jump, but most importantly, Ricey can teleport. Reflected is a 2D puzzle platformer with a huge emphasis on the puzzle elements. The core gimmick is that you can teleport to the circle that is on the opposite side of the central dividing line at any time. This allows for some extremely creative puzzle solving and some very challenging levels towards the end of the game. Without spoiling too much, let's just say that the developers of Reflected, Fluffy Brain, have used this mechanic and the level design to the fullest here. Visually speaking, this game is striking, utilising the contrasting synthwave colours to great effect. Levels can sometimes make things look a little messy, but each level is small enough that you'll never lose where you are. Starting with the settings, it's actually quite basic, but it has what you need. Individual toggles to turn music and sound effects on or off, screen shake, hints, and a full screen mode. With the simplistic retro art style, graphical options aren't really necessary as it will run on just about any old potato that you happen to have. The final thing I want to mention is the music. Honestly, it's fantastic. When I first opened up this game and heard the music start, I just sat there with a big grin on my face. It's interesting enough that it never gets boring, it doesn't loop too frequently, and it's not loud enough to make it difficult to focus. But there is a flaw. It's the only music track in the game, so you'll have to listen to it for your entire playthrough, which is only a couple of hours depending on your proficiency with puzzle games, or you can simply turn it off. With that out of the way, let's look at the actual game. Reflected is split into 30 levels of increasing difficulty and has a series of 7 tutorial levels to get you familiar with the core mechanics. Moving and jumping is controlled with either WASD or the arrow keys, teleport is set to X, and you can return to the last checkpoint with C. Alternatively, you can use a gamepad of your choosing. The goal of each level is simple: reach the mirror. Teleporting is the main mechanic of the game, and I'm pleased to say that it's extremely well done and satisfying to pull off. The visuals and sound effects are perfect, and it functions exactly how you would expect. Being able to leap out of nothingness to reach a new platform works well enough, but using it to pass through walls is clever design. The tutorial does make it apparent that precise platforming will be required. Simple enough, but the timing to jump correctly is fairly narrow. Thankfully, this isn't utilised in too many puzzles. You may have noticed in the background that some levels have the reflection line horizontal while others are vertical. This is where the final mechanic comes in that makes the game really shine. These orb items will rotate the reflection line to the position shown on the orb itself. By changing the position of the line, your ability to navigate the space has completely changed. Add on top of this pink zones that prevent you from teleporting, blue zones that act as platforms for your portal, and levels that have the mirror teleport between locations every time that you teleport. Well, let me put it this way. My brain hurt by the end of this game, but in a way that made me think, wow, this developer is really good at level design. I'm not going to do a play-by-play of the levels, but what I will say is that the pace at which the new elements are introduced and then interwoven with existing mechanics is fantastic. You never feel overwhelmed by options on how to complete a level. And even better, the mechanics are never over-explained through text dumps or pop-up windows. They are shown to you in a safe space so that you can play with it and figure it out for yourself. This kind of discovery leads to some wonderful aha moments. Take this level for example. The first level, the blue areas are introduced. You can clearly see the yellow platforms mirrored in the blue up the top. The area in pink cannot be teleported into, so you can only move Ricey through the bottom section. So you jump from pillar to pillar, and when you reach the final one, the checkpoint at the top is triggered, indicating that your teleport orb can interact with things. With nowhere left to go at the bottom, you see a blue pillar up the top, so you try to jump to it and land. Instantly, you've been shown that the teleport orb can interact with the blue areas and can navigate through the rest of the level. The very next level builds on this by having you navigate a blue area while also teleporting backwards and forwards to navigate jumps. This is a gameplay-based tutorial done well. They could have added a pop-up that explains what the new mechanic is, but no, they let you discover it yourself, which is much more satisfying. As I played through, there were a few levels here and there that made me scratch my head a bit, but all could be solved. The good news is that I can confirm that every level is completable, and it's the later stages that show how well designed the levels are. When multiple line rotations are involved, constructing the levels so that you still follow a guided path and there's only one solution is impeccable stuff. And to top things off, at the 11th hour when the game is about to wrap up, it introduces a whole other mechanic that breaks so many of the rules you've been learning just to mess with you. Jump to the timestamp on screen or in the description below if you're considering trying out this game for yourself and don't want to be spoiled. For everyone else, here's the final level. The sphere is gone and the entire screen is now divided by the reflection line. You can freely explore, and going out of bounds just moves you to the opposite side. For example, dropping down below makes you fall from the ceiling. So while you've been learning about all these mechanics in a safe, unchanging space, the final thing the game does is to shake up the fundamentals by changing your play area. It's a great move and one that makes Reflected that much more memorable. After 1 and a bit visual novels of questionable content, Reflected has been a breath of fresh air. The music and the art synergize nicely to create a solid aesthetic, the controls are tight and responsive, and the level design is creative and well executed. But that doesn't mean the game is without flaws. The solitary music track does begin to wear on you by the end, and there is a lot of roughness around the edges. Small things like there not being any visual transition between one level and the next might keep you in the gameplay, but it does little to celebrate your victory of clearing a level. Even a basic firework animation or a musical sting would have gone a long way to improve that feeling of satisfaction when completing a difficult challenge. Other than that though, it's an extremely solid puzzle game that doesn't overstay its welcome. It's also one of the few games I've reviewed that I think has priced itself quite reasonably. At $1.19 Canadian, or your regional equivalent, you'll get a solid few hours out of this game. Sadly, there's little replayability other than the potential for speedrunning the game. No achievements, no hidden collectibles or secrets, just a great idea, a solid mechanical foundation, and wonderful execution through the level design. So, with all that in mind, my rating for Reflected is Ricey out of 10. He's small, but satisfying. Thanks for watching. Welcome to the end of the video. This is the part where I awkwardly encourage you to like the video and subscribe for future ones. Go on, I know you want to. Thank you for joining me on this weird gaming adventure, and until next time, take care.